It's fun.
Recording's going.
I'm host Zach. We're talking with famous people. We have host Eric, and we have our famous person Tiffany, and who was in our last video to talk about what did we talk about?
Moral relativism.
Morality. Yeah, both of them. And you know, we would like to inquire more about Tiffany's personal life and primarily her transgenderism. So, is there anything that do you want to give a preface to anything? How long have you been transitioning at the moment?
I've been transitioning for less than a year at this point, and I came out pretty much a little bit less than a year ago. I'm like, I think this is probably my ENTP personality, but when I do something, I jump into it full force. So I'm not the kind of person that was like in the closet my whole life, scared about coming out, and then all of a sudden I finally got the courage to come out. When I realized that was what was bugging me, like in the back of my mind, in the back of my person and whatnot, like I jumped right into it. Um, I'm gonna preface this all by saying, like, I am not your average Caitlyn Jenner trans woman. I I am trans. I identify as a woman. I am transitioning into a woman, but I do not plan to have any form of bottom surgery. I am engaged to a genetic woman. I consider myself a pansexual. I I don't plan on taking hormones for now because I want to be able to have kids with my future wife, and I, if possible, want them to be ours and not adopted or some kind of weird experiment. And hormones can make you infertile, so I don't really want to go down that route of transformation until after I've at least tried to have kids. So those are just some like shotgun facts about me, real quick, and about the whole scenario that are not what most people would expect.
Mm-hmm.
At
Like,
least when you see like trans people in the media and whatnot.
I think that it's
How do you think?
interesting that the distinction between
Okay, go on.
identity, claiming an identity, and making physical changes. A lot of people would try to argue that there's a substantial distinction in those two things. But I think,
Well,
go ahead.
I think that there's a difference between gender and sex that most people don't see or understand.
Could you elaborate?
Well, I mean, the biggest point about that for me anyway would be that genitalia has nothing to do with whether I see myself as a man or a woman. And and to be quite honest, if society didn't have such fucked up roles for people in general, I don't think, like, I feel like gender is almost like a construct of society. Like if I could be me and being me felt like that was right, being a guy, like I don't think I'd have much of a struggle. And I don't think it's like as cut and dry as like, oh, like girls play with Barbies and boys play with trucks, and I wanted to play with Barbies, because that's not even necessarily true. Like I didn't want to play with Barbies, but like I don't know, like I just, part of me hates the idea of like man and woman, because I see gender as more of a fluid type of thing, and you don't fit the same way. I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't see sexuality as like straight or gay. Like, yes, some people are straight, some people are gay, some people are exactly in the middle, but it's some sort of a scale where you fit somewhere in between. It's not black and white. And so many things in my life, I'm such a kind of black and white person. Like, I take things to the extreme one way or another. I'm not a very gray area kind of person when it comes to that, to many things, but I try to be, because that's
Would
how things really are. Things aren't black and white, they're shades of gray.
would you say that you consider gender? You might you'd like this sentence that it's the that a woman is the identity that I'm inhabiting right now.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. Especially because when I was first coming out, I was toying with the idea that I might be gender fluid, which is another category that kind of essentially decides to move between that scale. And one day maybe they're a guy, one day maybe they feel more like a girl, one day they're somewhere in between, etc. And it's just whatever kind of mood strikes them is kind of what they are. And I thought that might be me for a while, and I kind of decided, no, it's not really me. I'm just a girl. It just feels right to me. When I say that, it feels right. When I feel that, it feels right. But like, I just feel like gender, sex, and sexuality are all like lumped together as if they're one thing, and they're so far apart. They're so like three different things. They're completely like they come in contact with each other, but they're really not related, in my mind.
You wouldn't say identity and biological gender are related.
Well, no, if that's the difference between sex and gender. Gender's an identity, whereas sex is your chromosomal makeup. You know, like XY versus XX versus deformed.
But it sounds like when you define the difference between identity or gender and sex, for example, that you're implying that there can be no biological basis for an individual's perception of themselves.
I think it's an influence, potentially. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this shit's some of the shit that troubles me. You know, it goes through my head all day. You know, you're asking all the right questions. I don't have the real answers for them, I'm not being terribly intuitive about everything. This is going to be like the more sensey, feely part of my nature, which is not the dominant part of my nature. But it's like that's all I have for this. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It just,
but there's no reason to prefer. This is the point. There's no reason to prefer a worldview that is predicated upon physical body things over one that prioritizes time object realities, which is what he's saying is that I'm inhabiting this time object reality right now, and somebody else pointing out that the space object reality doesn't conform to it is missing the point, because it doesn't conform with the space object reality corollary, which is sex, and it's subject to those rules in that space object reality. Indeed, I am a man according to that space object reality, because you're measuring sex.
I have a different definition of what a man is, though, than you do, clearly.
But according to that space object reality, if you're measuring sex according to your criteria in that reality, then yeah, you would say that, and it would be accurate according to its own rules of that reality. This is not a moral issue, though, right? So as a consequence, you're not imposing. Your position is not that other people should become women who are currently biological men. So it's not a moral position. It's not making a claim upon other people's realities. So as a consequence, there's no reason to say that this.
No reason to dispute it.
There's no reason. Yeah, there's no reason to dispute it, and there's no reason to say that the criteria of the physical world ought to be preferred over your time object reality depictions, simply because. Okay, why?
There is a study. It's done by a few sociologists, Cecilia Dane, Paul Lichtenstein, Marcus Bowman, etc. I'll put it in the chat. You can look at it. Which found that with individuals with body or gender body dysmorphia after transition, there was a significant increase in suicidal ideation in actual.
I've heard about that study. That's also assuming that every trans person wants to go through that type of transition, and that they're talking about bottom surgery specifically, which is something I'm electing to not do. In fact, I love my penis. I don't want to get rid of it. I quite enjoy using it.
Well, the thing is, implications of the study.
But that's a utilitarian justification. That's a utilitarian justification.
There's more to it than just that, because what it implies, not only with the transgender reality, if we accept body dysmorphia as a thing, gender dysmorphia as a thing, there are studies showing that there can be chemical imbalances pre-birth that cause things such as gender dysmorphia.
Okay.
But what this means is that there is a biological basis or predisposition towards certain gender roles, and there is no way to have both a biological basis for. You either have to accept that gender is something that is societal based or conditioned on societal norms or gender roles, stuff like that, or you have to base it biologically. And
why? Why do you have to make that distinction? That's
Well, you
what
know what?
because they're okay. Because in regards to policy, right now, something that's going on in our country is such as the bathroom laws that are being passed.
It's a load of bullshit because the argument there is that regardless of whether I'm a man or a woman, that I'm somehow a predator if I'm in the women's bathroom. That's essentially the thought behind the people that don't want me to use the bathroom.
My point wasn't that implying you were a predator or anything. My point
No,
was that
I know you're not.
discourse, like that's the reason I'm talking about it is because there's discourse currently going on in our country because of that, right? But I'm not looking at it that perspective. I don't think that. I don't think that there are many. I don't think just because someone's transgender it implies they're some sort of pedophile or something like that. What I'm primarily interested in is the identity politics that come with it, right? So the reality of I identify as this, and therefore I should be treated as a legal entity as such, labeled under that, right?
There's no reason for separate gender bathrooms in the first place.
I don't think there should be any legal basis surrounding gender, period. I don't think any law, laws pertaining specifically to one gender are gender discriminatory by nature. All laws should apply to all people equally.
Well, but there are some laws that have to be specific if you're going to have laws about them at all, such as pregnancy can't be specific to males, and it can only be specific to females.
Fair enough.
But
that's
I would
more
say,
of a medical issue.
But look, the issue to me is regarding the bathrooms. And before we start talking about whether transgender people,
It's the wrong framework.
yeah, well, before we start
You're
talking
right.
about whether
It's the wrong
transgender people should go into this bathroom or that bathroom, why the fuck do we have separate bathrooms in the first place?
Thank you.
Because when I go into a men's room, I am spending zero amount of time looking at the genitals of my fellow males. And if I went into the women's room, I would also spend zero amount of time looking at the genitals of my fellow bathroom mates. First of all, they wouldn't be using urinals.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it's not like I'm going to look over at them squatting over the urinal.
And if a woman went into a woman's room and started looking over the barriers at other women peeing, that would be unacceptable, regardless of whether she was born with a vagina or a penis.
Right.
Like, it's irrelevant.
I will say that the chicks have a weird intimacy with each other that guys don't have. Like, chicks will touch each other's boobs and stuff, you know? So, I don't know.
I'm
There's
not
that.
there at that level of accepted in the female community yet, so I don't think I can comment on that.
Yeah. I think it's, you know.
I don't think they do as much as you think they do, though.
You mean that the magazines are lying to me? You mean that's another lies? I could have sworn those were true stories. Are you sure? Interesting
I don't know.
discussion.
I think
Zachary, what are your
South
thoughts? Are you still having opposition to this notion or what?
The bathroom law thing. No,
Well,
to
go back to what you were saying, Zach, about the whole biological versus societal role thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we know. I don't think we have. The science isn't there yet. We don't have the answer to that.
Well, my view is, assuming that study is as legitimate as it comes off, assuming, and that it can be replicated, that I think that if there is a mortality increase after something such as like sexual, after transitional surgery, I don't think it would be wrong to legitimize something such as body dysmorphia as something to be treated, to be cured.
Well, what if there's an equal amount of people who experience elation after it, though? Maybe the bottom 10% experience suicidal feelings. The top 10% experience nothing but just extreme elation. They're like fuck yeah, I made the right decision.
Oh,
Maybe the outcomes are based on if you made the right decision or not.
There's something. Everyone's missing something here. Everyone's missing something, and that's that SRS, sexual reassignment surgery, is not a treatment for gender dysmorphia.
that's not true. That's not true.
Alone, it is never considered a treatment. Potentially, alongside therapy and other things, it may be considered part of the thing. But it's not being. It's not. Everyone's different. You're generalizing. It's too generalizing.
Okay,
Like-
well, I have a question though too. Are there are certainly a doctor's going to take a certain amount of time to determine whether the individual wants this, to try to make sure that the individual who wants this is not making a bad decision. Hopefully, if it's a good doctor.
But the doctors that do the surgery, they don't know anything about the psychotherapy of it. They get a note from a psychiatrist saying that it's okay to give this person hormones. It's okay to give them surgery.
Okay, fine. But the point is,
The system's flawed in that way.
I mean, I think there might be a reasonable claim to the notion that it's a mistake to make permanent changes to your body. I find it's a mistake to get tattoos. I find it's a mistake to get piercings. I find it's a mistake to get permanent changes to your body because how you feel now changes over time. And you want to preserve potentialities rather than end them. But even if that is a mistake, and even if you want to classify something as some sort of a mental disorder, I don't understand why it should make any difference in how we think about the non-physical part of it.
What do you mean?
For people like me, for instance, that are not getting any form of surgery, well, I may get breast implants at some point, but let's take that out of the equation. I'm not getting any form of bottom surgery. I'm not currently or planning to take hormones at any point in the near future. But I choose to identify as a woman. I keep my face shaved. I wear women's clothing. Sometimes I wear makeup at time in the morning, etc. And I call myself Tiffany instead of Michael. Michael's my legal name, by the way. And I use the women's bathroom. Let's take that framework as opposed to lumping all transgender people into they get some sort of surgery that may impact them positively or negatively.
What the science seems to suggest the most is that sex is obviously biological, and if you make the claim that gender is something that's outside of our biological selves, then the science would suggest that what you presume to be, or what you suppose your identity is something, a mix of biological or environmental. It's a mix of all of them.
Okay, but then if it's not, I'm not necessarily saying that gender is not biological. I'm just saying that it's separate from sex.
I mean,
A separate biological phenomena is responsible for your gender identity, then is responsible for your sexuality, then is responsible for your chromosomes X and Y.
my point is, why would you be able to declare yourself a Catholic as part of your identity, or a teacher, or a father, or anything, but not a woman?
Well, your religion isn't biological.
Okay, but I think the whole point of it is to say my identity is, I'm the one who decides what my identity is. If I declare myself a Superman who can fly, then it's not. Other people might say, "Well, but you actually can't fly," and I will say, "Well, that doesn't change the fact that I'm Superman and I can fly." And you can say, "Okay, well then, as long as, unless you're saying to me, if you were saying to me, but don't worry, I'll be there in an hour, even though I'm 1,000 miles away. I'm Superman, I can fly over there." Then I have an issue because I'm making a decision based on whether or not you actually can do that thing. So if you need Tiffany to have a vagina for some reason. Like you're doing.
But okay, your analogy doesn't work, and here's why.
Why?
Because it'd be different if there was something that people could be born as Superman, and you were trying to imply that you were Superman, but you didn't have the biological faculties that would suppose that you were. That's the difference. You're adding like a hypothetical thing here that just doesn't exist.
I'm gonna have to agree with Zach.
Okay,
Think
but
about
if it is in fact the case that he could have been born the other gender, then he wouldn't be him anymore, and then he would be the other gender, and he'd be transforming into a he.
Here's the thing, though, and I'm not speaking for all trans people. I never can, and I never have. And I feel like I don't fit into necessarily the norm in this sense. But I am in no way trying to identify as a woman that was born as a woman with a vagina. Like, I have no problem being Tiffany. I'm a woman. Like, I have no problem people knowing that there's that different biological fact about me. That biological fact is not factoring into why I'm saying I'm a woman.
And you're not tricking anybody, right? Nobody's going. He doesn't say. She doesn't say. I'm sorry about the naming stuff. I'm old generation. I'm a little slower to pick up all the naming stuff. She doesn't say, "Here I am. I'm a woman," in order to trick people into thinking that she was born with a vagina, and then they do,
No.
and they make decisions based on that because she told them she had a vagina because she said she's a woman. That's not the actual connection that people make. When you tell somebody you're a woman, the response that they have factors in the fact that visibly I'm looking at this person and this person doesn't look like my conventional expectations or sound like my conventional expectations of a woman. But he's reserving the right to make that assertion, which is requiring those individuals whose realities are in conflict with that assertion to bring their attention to that issue in general. But the point is, he's not making any claims for them. He's only making claims for himself. And so, as a consequence, to the extent that you tell him his claims about his own identity are somehow belied by reality, then you're making a claim that you know better about his own identity than he does, or she does. Sorry, again.
It's okay, and this is what I tell people. Like, and I'm not going to do it every single time here, but I'll correct people and say, like, it's she, not he sometimes. And people get very defensive, and I'm not correcting you because I'm mad at you or angry. I don't expect you to get it right. I realize what I'm asking of you, and calling me a woman and referring to me as she instead of he is going against what you're used to. I may need to remind you. That doesn't mean I'm mad at you. But
I bet younger people remember better than older people. Zach, what are your thoughts?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
I don't know. As a position, I'm still primarily unconvinced of the identity politics in regards to just. I think people should. Obviously they have the right to identify as whatever they want, but I just don't think there's any biological basis for it unless there's a sense of. Unless we look at something like body dysmorphia and legitimize it as a biological reality, then we can view it as something to.
It's not politics, though. Politics implies it's saying what others ought to do. That's what makes it politics in my mind.
When there are certain agendas being pushed by, for example, the left, who want to have things like they want to ignore the. It's more of like there should be equal opportunity for everything, but there shouldn't be special exceptions. Right?
What are the exceptions?
I don't want any exceptions.
I can't think of any, but I'm interested in hearing if there are. Look, these things have to be adjudicated on a case-by-case basis. If, in fact, somebody's saying transgender people should be subject to some additional violence that the rest of us aren't, then that's bad. If there's some exception that says transgender people should not be subject to some violence that the rest of us are subject to, then that's good. We don't need to make them subject to it. We need to become not subject to it ourselves. If it's something else, I want to know what it is.
That's hard to argue against.
I mean, that's the thing. It's politics only in the extent to which you're saying it's addressing public policy. The only issue I've heard about with transgender people in public policy is this issue of the bathrooms. And my point is, we're civilized people. I'm able to use the bathroom in the same room with a woman without raping her or whatever. That's like Muslims. Muslims tend to structure their society like that's going to happen. Well, you can't let that woman near that man over there. He's gonna jump on her and start raping her. Like, oh, Eric, did you rape those people again? God damn it, Eric. Every time you see a woman, you just can't control yourself. You start raping. No. I'm going to be thinking about fucking talking with famous people while I'm peeing. You know, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be fucking raping.
I don't see anything wrong with gender segregated bathrooms.
Okay, but do you see anything wrong with stopping people from going into one if they're not the gender that they've indicated that you ought to be?
Well, that's the thing. No, I don't see a problem with that. But I mean, I see a problem with. Okay, the problem I have when it becomes policy, when it becomes something like it's legal to identify what you want and then do whatever, right? I think it should have been left the same way it was, except the reason I think that is because if someone is passable as a transgender woman, or at the opposite, if someone's passable as a trans man, I don't think it would ultimately matter, right? They're not gonna, I mean, they're not gonna get shamed out, right? Unless there is a problem there.
But it's not a policy. It's not policy. It's not policy to say we're not going to do something. Like, we're not going to stop you if you go into that door instead of that door. That's not a policy. A policy is if you go into that door under the following criteria.
Well, the thing is, like, but it's legitimatizing something like I can. And the bathroom laws is ultimately like that, where it's like I can identify as what I want. That's what I am, which I just doesn't have any reality to me. It just doesn't manifest.
So why does the segregation of bathrooms have reality for you?
Because there's biological differences between the sexes.
But does that mean why? Okay, then why don't we have separate supermarkets?
But that's not the problem. You're changing the goalposts.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm saying justify the bathroom thing as distinct from any other environment, because other environments were next to women.
Why does that mean they need a different space?
I guess that I don't know. I just think that the genders have decided that way. I don't see anything wrong with the way it is.
Okay, let me
fit the grain. So it's easy.
Let me position it like this. Let me try to make the argument for the other side here.
My problem isn't that I don't think that transgenders should be restricted from going to bathrooms, but when we start looking at something like being able to identify as whatever you want and legitimizing that as a thing, I think that's just silly.
Why though? Why is it more silly? Why is it more silly than you identifying as a man? Just because you're.
I have to go pick up my fiance from work. I really want to keep talking with you guys, and I think we should return to this topic at some point.
Okay, well, I'll keep arguing with Zach in your absence, okay?
Okay.
All right, see you later.
Bye, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, great, dude. Thanks for being on Talking to Famous People. Lady, I mean.
Yeah.
All right, see you. Cool. Come back, for sure. All right. So that's weird. Okay, here's the argument I would make for your side, which is, look, from a person who self-identifies as a male, from my perspective, chicks are different.
I identify as a male because of my own biological faculties that make me a male.
Okay,
is that simple?
I would say that from my perspective as a male, the reason I'm uncomfortable with that notion is because I don't think chicks want it. I don't think chicks like it. And as a male, my position is chicks have their chick stuff going on, and they want to do that in private, and they don't want non-chicks seeing it. or being around it. And they want a
Well,
space. There are differences in people based on sex that cause them to behave certain ways. But I think if you have those behaviors, then I guess I don't know. I have a hard time justifying any of it, really. Except if it's private property, like if it's a store, the store should be able to say, well, our customers prefer it this way, so we're doing it that way. But then it's my position they should also be able to do that with race.
Well, certain groups are wanting shit like that. I mean, there's black-owned universities. There's Black Lives Matter wants black killing spaces and shit. I mean, it's ironic that when you look at stuff like black killing spaces, and it's just like the KKK and Black Lives Matter don't use a lot of the same words, but the realities they want are ultimately not that different.
To me, the key thing is to be a private business of some sort, to be owned, and then the owner is being petulant, basically, and saying, well, I don't want you, and I want you, and I don't want you, and I want you. And the fact that the criterion that he's using, we call race, doesn't change the fact that it's fundamentally and arbitrarily selecting some individuals and not based on nothing. So,
You don't think race is a biological thing, though? I mean, it's not based
no,
on
it's
nothing.
not. No, it's not. Race is not real. There's no biological basis for race. It's a social construct.
That's not true.
Absolutely, it's true. You cannot. There are no tests you can give to determine somebody's race.
That's not true. You can tell someone's race by
what?
I mean, I don't know specifics. I'm not a biologist, but
Because you can't. There isn't any criterion that works. You can't. If I give a science,
I can do a lot of studies that show otherwise.
okay, you need to experience the joy of Jones 2013. When you think about it, it's ridiculous to say that race is real. It's absurd. Race is not there's no biological basis for race at all. And I will show you why right now.
I mean, okay, let me clarify my position here. I agree that it's arbitrary insofar as it doesn't change the political egalitarianism that we should view individuals, but on the basis of arguing whether or not it exists, it definitely is biological.
Well, but it's not though.
How can you do you accept evolution as a fact?
A fact of what? The differences you're pointing to aren't real.
Okay, I can link you to. Would you be willing to look at some evidence?
Don't show it to me. Read me the card. I'm about to read you a couple cards. If you want to go evidence, I'm about to read you a couple cards right now.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we're getting kind of off topic. Like, before we do this, we should probably wrap up this video in general.
All right, so we're gonna do race in a separate video. Okay, fine. Yeah. So thanks for watching, people. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.